Hey everyone, welcome to the live coaching session. Welcome to Freedom Builder Bootcamp. Today is the official kickoff of the Freedom Builder Bootcamp, which I'm very excited about. I hope you guys are as well. As you guys know, for this live coaching session, I'm here to answer all of your questions. So I don't have any specific topics to teach. Instead, I'm here to answer whatever questions you guys have. And specifically related to kind of modules 1 through 3, which would be best, but of course I'm here to answer any questions that you guys have. Lee asked, hey Greg, can I get some feedback on a couple of products that I'm looking at? There's a few different ways that we can do this. One, you can email support and we'd be more than happy to help you. Another way you can go about doing it is on last live coaching session. I like this quite a bit actually. What someone did is they sent me via Facebook Messenger. I don't normally check it, but I will during the Facebook Live. The product that they're looking at, I'll pull it up on my screen, I'll look at it, and I'll give you feedback, but I won't tell the audience what your specific product is. And the benefit of doing this is then I'm giving feedback that's beneficial for everyone watching, but at the same time, I'm not going to give away your particular product. The next one's from Raman. Raman says, can you kindly make a video on how to decide which product to select using Keyword Scout? I'm confused while analyzing competition level of the product because it varies a lot depending on the keyword we choose. So I don't typically make product research or product selection choices based off of any of the data from Keyword Scout. Keyword Scout's beneficial when you're setting up PPC campaigns. It's beneficial when you're creating your listing by doing keyword research. It's also beneficial for thinking of other niches that you could potentially go into that would be fairly similar to that, but it's not really that useful for product selection. So hopefully that answers your question. This one's from Kathy. It says, if my China supplier is shipping to Amazon's Dallas distribution center, do I still need to establish a shipping plan and get box shipping labels from the seller account? Yes. When shipping to Amazon, regardless of who's shipping it there or what method you're using, you always have to create a shipping plan in Seller Central. This is essentially what's telling Amazon what's being sent into them. And this also gives you the labels to help you do so. Just the answer to that is yes. Ziad said, hey, we set up a professional seller account. At the time, we haven't had any inventory at Amazon warehouse. Is it possible to ask for the $39 refund? I don't know. You could try. The best way to do so is just contact seller support. That's the help button in the top right-hand corner of the screen and see what they say. Christopher said, I've completed each step of the process up to module 3.3, calculating profit so far. Thanks for all the help. My question is, will I fall behind the course because I chose to use ocean shipment? If so, should I knowingly lose out on significant profit by using air shipment the first time and plan on using the ocean shipment thereafter? No, I don't think so. I would just go with what's most profitable for you. And, you know, because you can always rewatch these videos. You can, and honestly, once, like by the time like you've placed your order, after that, you're essentially like eligible to do everything besides really kind of like the PPC on your product because it's not in there, right? You can go ahead and set up your listing. You can go ahead and set up shipping. You can do all that other types of things that we're speaking about in the course. So I would go with the shipping method that's most profitable. Manzar said, hey, Greg, would you recommend to use Freightos to select the freight forwarder to ship from China to the UK? Yes, I think they're a good option for that as well. Ram said, hey, Greg, can we create a brand name that already exists or do we have to trademark it first before starting to sell? If this is a brand that you've already created, then no problem at all using one that already exists. If this is a brand name that's used by someone else, I wouldn't recommend it. If this is a brand name used by someone else in a similar industry and they have it trademarked, then it would actually be like IP infringement in order to do so. But best practice would be just to have your own brand name that isn't taken by anyone else. Kathy asked, if my China supplier is shipping for me, do I still need to get a bond and insurance from Freightos? So I guess There's a few different ways that this could be going on. Like one could be like your Chinese supplier is essentially doing like a DDP shipment where they're handling everything from A to Z as far as shipping it into Amazon. If this is like an Ex-Works shipment or an FOB shipment, but they're just arranging for the freight forwarder for you, then it would still be up to you to get the bond and insurance. Hopefully I answered your question. I understand from Jungle Scout support that the Jungle Scout extension profit calculator does not include Amazon storage fees. Do storage fees start from the day the goods arrive at Amazon? Thanks. I don't remember for sure if like the first 30 days are free or not. What I do know is this: if it's not fourth quarter and you haven't been storing your goods for 6 months at Amazon's warehouse, the storage fees per unit are pretty much negligible. All right, it'd be like, we're talking like pennies. If you're storing a significant amount of goods during Q4, or if it's a long period, which then incurs something called long-term storage fees that happen after like 6 and 12 months. After 12 months, they get really expensive. Then they start to add up more. So essentially what I'm saying here is you want to do your inventory planning so you don't have goods that are there for over 6 months. As long as that's the case, it's not, I don't personally factor it in or like those costs. So if you want, you could factor in a few pennies. If you use Amazon's FBA fee calculator, that's what they do. But I don't know for sure how they decide to add in like a few pennies, because how do they know how long your goods are going to be stored at Amazon? Roman said, selecting a brand name and then trademarking it could be a lengthy process. So do you recommend doing it before making an order? I think let's see, the video on this I think is posted next week or maybe the week after. But so let me start by saying, like, you don't have to have a trademark to sell on Amazon, right? That is certainly not a requirement. The reason that trademarks are spoken about so heavily, like in the FBA communities versus just like typical entrepreneurship or small business communities, is in order to register for Amazon's brand registry program, you do have to have a trademark, okay? And the registration process for a trademark takes a long time. We're talking like a half a year or more. Now, if you're pretty serious about this business and you do want to invest the money in going ahead and getting the trademark now, I would recommend doing it sooner rather than later. Something else, though, that's really cool is Amazon, this is fairly recently, released this program called the IP Accelerator Program, all right? And how the IP Accelerator Program works is if you use one of the law firms that Amazon has designated here on this page, and you can find them by going to Apps and Services and Explore Services and doing IP Accelerator. As soon as one of these law firms files for your trademark, Amazon will go ahead and let you into brand registry immediately, because otherwise you have to wait until the trademark is actually registered. Whereas if you use one of these Amazon approved law firms, then it's just after it's submitted. So it's much quicker. So then the process only takes like a week or two as opposed to like over a half year. I personally haven't used any of these yet because this is a pretty new program. So I'm not quite sure how much they cost. I imagine most of them would be similar to other law firms providing trademark services, but those are always going to be more expensive, of course, than trying to do it yourself or using one of these other ways to kind of do it online. So the question that Rob submitted, the product that Rob submitted, so I searched for it on Amazon, and actually let me do something real quick. I think I have a good idea here. Cool, so I'm actually able to now share my screen. 1 second. So this particular product, I'm going to show you right here. And this one has been anonymized essentially, so there's no information about what category or what type of product this is or anything like that. So just like purely based off of the numbers, we can all look at this together. Of course, there's other things to factor in besides just the numbers, right? But based purely off the numbers, here would be some of my like initial impressions. All right. So the sales numbers are all very good. This is a lot of sales in this particular category, or for this particular niche or product. I like the price point quite a bit, $30, $40, $50, $60. That's a great price point. There's usually plenty of opportunity to have a good margin in there. The fees are all reasonable, so the net's solid as well. When I look at the number of reviews, this second one might have been sponsored, or these top two might have been sponsored products. I forgot to look before I X'd out of there. But these top ones right here have a lot of reviews. These would be like extremely competitive. And I mean, you can see like this one with 17,000 reviews is killing it. They're selling 23,000 of these every month, which is crazy. Once I get down to the bottom section here, this isn't as competitive. I'm not seeing as many reviews, but this is still, I'd say, like fairly competitive. The other thing that I would say is like overall, the quality is fairly good. I'm seeing lots of 4, 4.5s, or 5s. So there's probably not a ton of room for improvement. Maybe some to try to get 5-star reviews like this guy does. And then some of the other things that I'm looking at here, I'm looking at the listing quality score. Some it's not able to pull, but the ones it is able to pull, 6s and 7s, so fairly good listings. So I mean, my like first impression of this is this particular one might be a little bit competitive, like for your first product. Not only that, but the higher price items like this are selling for 40, 50, 60 bucks. In order to purchase this and have enough inventory to be able to last 2 or 3 months, it's going to be quite a bit of money because you need to purchase like 3,000 or 4,000 units. If each one costs 15 bucks, that's obviously a significant chunk of change. So those are all different things to consider. All right, we'll get back to the questions here. Rob said, how much does it typically cost for a trademark? The filing fees with USPTO, which is the government organization that handles IP registrations, the filing fees alone are 250 bucks. That's if you agree to communicate with them online, which I don't know why you wouldn't. And then, so if you were to do it yourself, it'd be 250 bucks. Some people do it themselves. However, it's not the hardest process in the world, but it's not the easiest either. Like if it's a very unique name that like there's no question that no one else has it, then it's usually fairly straightforward. If it's anywhere, like any bit of a gray area, like there's someone else with a similar mark, but it's in a different category, that's when it starts to get a little bit more challenging. And that's typically when you'd want to hire someone to do so. So if it's very unique, 250 bucks and you could do it yourself. If you hire a law firm to do so, I think my lawyer was charging me like 1,000 or 1,500 bucks to register a trademark. Raman asked, can you please advise if the majority of the sellers in the top listings are new sellers, less than 3 months? Should we choose that product or skip it? That's a good sign if the majority of the listings at the top are very young, because that means it's probably a relatively young niche, because these pretty new listings are able to rank well. Manish said, still coming to terms with product research and struggling to find the right product. I came across a lot of products which are analyzed as low competition about the Chrome extension, but there are over 30 sellers selling that item. So how come it is low competition? What is your criteria to analyze in terms of sellers to determine competition? Great question. There are a number of different factors that I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about level of competition, right? How many people are selling it? How long have those listings been around? How many reviews do they have? How good of listings are there? Is there anything that I can improve upon? Like if you want to get really technical, you could even start to look at PPC costs or PPC bids. So there's like a lot of different ways that you can be thinking about levels of competition here. So I don't only look at number of sellers by any means. I personally think that number of reviews is probably the best gauge. But that being said, there's like, as you saw kind of like in the product research modules that I put together, there's not really just like one thing I look at. Then he said, with regards to sponsored products, I saw a product which is high demand and high competition, but only one sponsored listing in the top row. Do you think I stand a chance to boost my product and list on the first page if I spend PPC? Not necessarily. Amazon's not real consistent with how they decide how many listings to put in the sponsored product section. It's one is fairly uncommon. It's usually 2, 3, or 4. That being said, like on different search pages, you'll see different number of results. So because you're only seeing one sponsored product listing, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's only one person bidding on that term. It might just mean that Amazon only chose to show one sponsored product. All right, Douglas asked, sent you a quick question on my product on a DM. Can you take a look and give me some quick feedback? Sure, happy to do so. Let me pull it up. All right, let me search for this real quick and I'll give you guys my feedback. So Douglas said, please check this particular item. Most of the one-star reviews say this. They should have checked the listing more closely, but then gave bad reviews. I thought an improvement would be make it bigger. However, it's hard to find a supplier that makes one bigger. Yeah, Douglas, this is actually I've done this before, that you'll find products that are getting bad reviews because essentially the customer doesn't understand what they're purchasing. So the item that they purchase doesn't align with what they understood or believed that they would have received. So oftentimes what you can do in this particular scenario is you actually don't need to make any improvements to the product. You just need to make improvements to the listing to make it more clear. Size is often have you guys ever seen those, let me know in the chat box, like those HuffPost and some of those other publications do it, but they do like top 10 biggest Amazon product fails or like funniest Amazon product reviews. There was this one where this girl thought she was getting like a full-size shirt, or they left this in the reviews, but instead of like it was a shirt for a little doll and it just wasn't clear on the listing. That kind of reminded me of this. But oftentimes what you can do is you can just better display either the size or what they're getting in the listing. And the best way to do this is to explain to the customer everything they need to know by only looking at the photos. People on Amazon don't like to read. They just like to be able to look at the photos, me included. So a good way to show the size of a product is, of course, you could kind of like draw on it, like the actual dimensions. But what's probably even better is taking a photo of it next to something that everyone would understand the size of. So if it's really small, maybe you take a picture of it next to a penny. If it's a little bit larger, maybe you take a picture of it next to a ruler. If it's bigger, maybe someone's holding it. These are all ways that, like, without reading, you get a good idea of the sense of the size. Raman asked, do we really have to buy .com from online resources like NameMesh in order to reserve the brand name? If not, then how will I make sure that no one else will take the brand name later once I've selected it? If the .com's available, then I think it's kind of a no-brainer to go ahead and register it, because domain names are pretty inexpensive and you don't want someone to take it later. So if you chose a brand name and you were moving forward with it, I would definitely snatch up the domain name or domain names, including some of the either the misspellings or the different endings. They're called TLDs. I would also go ahead and just snatch all those up on any social platforms where they're available. You know, even if you don't use them right now, it's just a good thing to have so other people don't take them. Will you personally be launching the product you found in the course? Rob, no, I'm not going to. In the past, I've done so through like different case studies and stuff. And what I've found is, you know, since there would be a lot of people following along or like watching it, that a lot of people will just be copying the exact same product instead of the methodologies that I'm teaching. And as a result, like the week it gets in, there's like 50 new competitors that week. So I'm not going to be personally launching that one. D asks, Greg, regarding trademarks, I will use your company as an example. 2 of Jungle Creations products are Jungle Snugs and Jungle Sticks. Do you trademark Jungle Creations or the individual products? There is really no need to register the trademark of your store name unless for whatever reason, if you believe that's like really important to you. And I'm talking about like your Amazon store name. All right, it's like mine's named Jungle Creations. You don't need that for brand registry. From IP protection purposes, I don't really see much need of it. So no, I do not have that registered. I do have registered the specific brands of my products. So let me just show you this real quick. So in order to register for brand registry, you have to have the trademark of the brand, and the brand is what's shown here, okay? Or like, I'll go ahead and just show this to you guys real quick. When you manage your inventory, there is a section right here that says brand name, okay? And this is the name that must be trademarked in order to register it in brand registry, all right? So that's what I'm talking about when I say brand. Dan has a couple questions. What is domestic landing shipping cost and how is it calculated? Some products seem to have no supplier. How do we look further? All right, let me do these one at a time. Domestic landing or shipping cost in the, I always forget what's in what module. Let me look real quick. All right, so modules 1 through 3 are posted. Module 4 is around the packaging, branding, and Amazon brand registry, which will answer a lot of you guys' trademark questions. After that's shipping. In the shipping module, which is module 5, I cover how to find all of your shipping costs, both domestic as well as overseas shipments. But the TLDR there for the domestic shipping costs would be that I primarily use Amazon because theirs is much cheaper. And when you create a shipment inside of Seller Central, they tell you that cost. The next question from Dan is, some products seem to have no supplier. How would we look for them further? There's a few things you could do. One is on Alibaba, you could do the RFQ, which is a request for quote. Let me pull this up and I'll show it to you. On Alibaba, just Google this or rfq.alibaba.com. You can do a request for a quotation, and in here they'll let you kind of describe the product however you want or just show the photos of it, and factories who think they can make that will send you a quote of what it would cost for them to create that product for you. So that's a way you could go about doing it. Alternatively, you could look for another factory that makes a similar product. So let me give you an example of this. This makes a lot more sense if you ever get the opportunity to go look at factories. It's really cool, but when you go visit factories, it's pretty clear, like, okay, this factory makes towels. You know, they have the machine that dyes the fabric, and they have the machine that cuts the fabric, and then they have 100 sewing machines that are people who are sewing all these towels together. So it's like, that's all they'll make at that particular factory. And then you'll go to another factory that's making something plastic, and like this whole factory is dedicated to making plastic Legos or whatever, right? Or, you know, it's like all plastic products. So they'll have all the manufacturing equipment in order to like inject the different plastic in the molds or whatever else. So where I'm going with this is, if you would like to find someone to make a product for you and you can't find someone who's advertising that particular product, you could try to contact factories that make something very similar and see if they'd be willing to make that. Feedback for Jungle Scout product ideas. You know, I think there's a few different ways you can go about doing it. Of course, you can always email us, support@freedombuilderbootcamp.com. Another way to go about doing it is like with some of your peers and asking them what they think. I think oftentimes people are very concerned with other people like stealing their ideas, but honestly, it's probably unlikely, especially, you're seeing these same people in the chat, you're seeing the same people in the Facebook group every week, you're talking to these people, you start to kind of like build these relationships. And what I've seen in a lot of the different courses I've taken over the years is like I start to kind of like get to know people and we share ideas. And the benefit of that is, one, it's just always good to like have a second set of eyes on it, but it's also nice just to like these are the people in the course with you, and that's one of the huge benefits of going through this course. Are people falling behind if they don't have a product finalized? No, they're not. Don't worry. How much did you make in sales when you first started out? So Rob, I started in 2013, so 7 years ago now, which like the climate on Amazon, of course, was much different then. I think probably maybe the question you really want to know is like, how much can you expect? And honestly, like it varies widely. And I know everyone hates that answer, right? But like I'll be working with some people and like their first product will just be like a home run, right? And like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. This is amazing. My first product is selling like the crazy amounts, like better than some of my products. I oftentimes get kind of like messages from people like that, and like I'm really proud of them. That's super awesome. And then there's other people that will be like, my first product was a complete flop. Like they might say like, this doesn't work, Amazon sucks, blah blah blah, whatever. So it really varies a lot. What I will tell you is I think like a good mindset to go in with this is like your first product, go in with the mindset, like if you break even, that's a win. Because with your first product, you learn so much. You learn how the system works. You learn, like some of this stuff, like you can just watch videos all day, but like you don't really learn it sometimes until you actually do it. So there's so much value in just going through the process and learning it that I think that's how you should be thinking about your first product. And I'd say just like go in with the mindset that if you break even, it's a win. And that way you won't be disappointed if you don't hit a home run with the first one. Hey Greg, I found a product. Inventory will be in the Amazon warehouse within the next couple of weeks. Wow, congratulations, you moved really fast. The listing will be done prior. What process should I follow to effectively launch this product? Good question, and there's an entire module dedicated to just this. It's going to be module number 7, which is going to be released the last week of January. However, the quick summary of that is what I like to do is I like to run PPC very aggressively, and I like to give away coupons for units through the Jungle Scout promotions functionality. And I can show you what that looks like. On Jungle Scout promotions, you can create a promotion here. And what that does is let me show you, it publishes a promotion on this website, JumpSim. On this website, there's tens of thousands of people every day looking for deals. If they want your deal, they can go here, they can click on it, and they can request a coupon from you. After they've requested a coupon from you, you can choose whether or not you want, or how many coupons you want to give away that day. And then they'll go purchase your product on Amazon with that coupon. The benefit of that is you're getting a sale on Amazon, which helps Amazon's algorithms understand that people are interested in your product. As a result, it's ranked better. Same thing with PPC. As you're getting sales, it starts to rank better. There's, of course, a little bit more than that goes into it. And that's why I recorded, I think, 14 lessons inside of the product launch module. Can we sell products just with the store name and not the brand name? And can we add it later? It doesn't matter whether or not the brand name matches the store name. It could be the same, it could be different. I would recommend different. But you have to list a brand name in order to create a listing on Amazon. And I guess it's up to you what you call it. I would recommend going with kind of the methodology that we talk about. Actually, all right, that might be in module 4. That might be the one that's released next week. All right, let me see, or this week. Oh no, this week on Thursday is when the module is released that we talk a lot more about branding and Amazon brand registry. And I think that will answer a lot of the questions that you guys have. All right, Laura, yours finally came through. All right. So this one's on the German marketplace. I don't speak German, but thankfully the numbers are the same. Let me, all right, so this just loaded. And when I look at this, the top, so the price point, it's all a solid price point. It's between about 20 and 40 euros. The monthly sales are quite strong. It looks like they're around 200 on the lower end, and then there's a few sellers doing 700 or over 1,000 with very, overall, fairly low reviews. The people who are doing a lot have 69 and 183. The rest like 10, 20, 30 type. So I'd say like overall, this looks like from the numbers, this looks like a pretty solid niche. When I look at the actual product, it looks like something that's pretty simple, easy to get manufactured. This particular product is easily breakable. So that doesn't mean you don't have to do it, but it's just something to be mindful of, that you will have more returns because of breakage, unless your factory is really good about packaging them. But like overall, I think that's like a pretty solid product that I think is worth looking into further, Laura. All right. Rob said, what's the biggest mistake you made with Amazon and how can we avoid these issues? One time, the heaviest box that like Amazon will let you send into them is 50 pounds. And one time I sent a an entire container of master cartons that weighed like 80 pounds each, and they wouldn't unload the container. So then the container had to be sent back to the freight forwarder, and then the freight forwarder had to take all of those, like they had to take the products out of the master cartons, kind of like rebox them into smaller master cartons and send it back. It ended up taking like a month and it ended up costing me a lot of money. That was the first one that came to my head, but I've made a lot of mistakes on Amazon. Blaze, hey Greg, what sort of initial stock levels will be your advice for the first order? Also, is there a single repository or list of details that's required for a non-US based seller to sell in the US? I typically order 3 months of inventory in my initial order. And as far as requirements for non-US based sellers, I try to cover as many of those as I can. The specific one you mentioned, HS code, that's actually applicable for everyone who's importing goods, regardless of where you're from or where you're selling. I don't know of any single repositories that says, like, these are all the things you need to be aware of if you're a non-US seller. But like, I'm just trying to think through my head. You know, the Seller Central registration process is a little bit different. I'm trying to think about what else. I mean, like payment gets a little bit more challenging, but we talk about the whole like Payoneer thing. Other than that, I really don't think there's much. D said, just to clarify, I would need to brand name every product I sell in order to be the brand registry. So using your numbers if I'm paying an attorney. So every product you sell doesn't have to have a different brand name. I would recommend that every product you sell has the same brand name. And as a result, you would only pay that fee once, D, to register your trademark. So, you know, I could launch a billion different products with the name Jungle Sticks brand name. And as a result, you know, I'm just paying for that trademark once. Said, how can we make sure to pick the right broad keyword of products to analyze the niche? Yeah, this is a good question that people ask often. And there's not really like a way to know for sure if like this is like the most popular keyword. But like what you have to keep in mind is if you just try searching for what you think's like the most general or most broad or like most common keyword, that's probably good enough, because those top products will probably share like their main keywords kind of. So like my advice to you would just be like, don't think about it too hard. How much time do you spend after a product's launched? Honestly, it doesn't take many. You need to stay in stock. You get very few customer questions. You need to keep an eye on your listing, make sure everything's fine with it. But like it's quite a bit of work going into it. But then up until that point, what's really nice is it's kind of like you've built a system that runs without you having to spend too much time on it. Assuming like you have one product. If you have like 1,000 products, of course, it's going to be a big job. Suzanne says, hey, Greg, we're looking at a product that is required to be made from flame retardant material. How or who do I check with that it has the right warnings, testings, and labels? Suzanne, the best person that I've found to check with is an inspection company. So the one that I've used for years, I always forget their name. It used to be called Asia Inspection. Now it's called Qima, Qima. I'll show it to you. This is the one that I've always used, but I'm trying to think the name of the most popular one. It's slipping my mind, but I do put it in the shipping module when I talk about inspections. These companies are like, this is their job to do inspections or testing. So they're very familiar with all the different rules and regulations for each different country around what types of testing would need to be done. And they can also let you know if it's required to put that like on your tags or your packaging or whatever else. I've never found anywhere else like a central database to find all this information. Of course, you can just kind of Google it, but the inspection companies are a great resource, and you can ask them for free. Like if you want to hire them to do the testing, of course it costs money, but you can just email them and they'll respond about what testing or inspections they recommend. All right, a couple other people saying DMs. Let me try one more time. I don't know what's up with my Facebook Messenger. I have about 1 million unread DMs, so Facebook might be cutting me off. All right, Ramen, I just got yours. Can you please provide your views on these product numbers? Sure. Since it's anonymized, we can look at it together as a class. So, like I'm looking over here at price point. Some of these are obviously like pretty low. I wouldn't want to sell an item for like $7.50. But if you can sell one of these higher prices, 15, 20 bucks, then that's better. Sales are obviously pretty strong. The number of reviews aren't really like that high. So it's like, I'm obviously looking at this as under a very small lens right now because it's just a few data points, which are really valuable, but there's of course other things to look at. But as far as like just these data points that I'm looking at, overall it looks like it could be a pretty good opportunity. But like I said, of course, there's other things to look at. What's the product like? Why are people purchasing some of these ones that sell really well versus some of the ones that don't as much? So there's other things to take into account here as well. How do you gauge 3 months of inventory? I usually just look at like the top 5 or top 10 sellers and look at who is, how many units per month those individuals are selling. And I gauge my sales based off of how many units they're selling. Raman asks, is the opportunity score alone enough to decide about a product? No, opportunity score is a good gauge, but I wouldn't use it as the only value that you're looking at. Lisa says, hey Greg, I've had difficulty deciding on a product because I struggle to fully understand the competition. I've seen it change from low to high on the same keywords. I've found one product now which looks good and seems to have low competition, but the sellers seem to have good LQS and ratings, and the few possible improvements are not really viable. Would you recommend going ahead with it? Yeah, like Lee said, I try to do the best I can to like help as much as I can with all these questions. Obviously, it's it's pretty hard to give really good advice based off of just this information that you gave me. What I would recommend for you is like continue to do product research, find a few of your like top different niches to go into, and then ultimately you are just gonna have to pick one, because like everyone are gonna have kind of like, each one that you find is gonna have like these kind of subtle nuances to them. Like, okay, this one, I'm worried about this one because of this, I'm worried about this one because of this, but ultimately you do just have to end up choosing one and going with it, because sometimes you don't like kind of really know until you order it. Robert, Happy New Year. Love to be part of the Jungle Scout boot camp. We're happy to have you, Robert. What is the best way to verify if a product needs FDA approval? You could ask, anything that comes into contact with food is supposed to have FDA approval. You put here in the comments, so I feel like it's okay to share it, that it's a disposable food tray. If it's like a tray that food directly goes on, it's pretty clear cut to me that touches food. If it's like a tray that holds, that like you put like bowls and cups on, then it's like, all right, it doesn't come into contact with food, but I could see where that would be a little bit of a gray area. I personally would email one of those inspection companies and get their opinion on it. But I guess at the end of the day, it's kind of going to be up to the customs agent, but they'd probably have a pretty good idea. Raman said, can you advise if I have to request an EIN number if I'm doing business in the US from Canada, and how? If the entity that you're registering with Amazon is a corporation, an LLC or S Corp, whatever you decided to choose, then it has to have a tax ID associated with it, which would be an EIN. If the legal entity that you registered with Amazon is your personal self or a out-of-country legal entity, then I don't think you would need an EIN, but that's the one I'm not quite sure on. I don't operate any non-US legal entities, I'm sorry. Douglas asked, in listing pictures, is it considered good form to show your product in relation to a competitor's? Like if reviews say their paint rubs off and you find this to be true, so you get an improved product from a factory that doesn't rub off for your product and then compare the two in a picture. I mean, this is pretty effective. Like a lot of the split tests that I've looked at, that's kind of like ours versus them, pictures tend to do pretty well. So I mean, I would probably do it, to be honest. Yeah, like on Amazon in general, it's pretty easy to comparison shop. So most of them are going to be looking around anyway. So it's like, yeah, you could, help your customers go ahead and do the comparison shopping for them. Blaze asked, hey, Greg, can you advise on QC approach when ordering from China? Perhaps share personal experiences. Yeah, absolutely. And again, in the shipping module, which is going to be released on January 16th, I go in depth about this particular topic, but the short of it here is I recommend hiring a company to do inspections if the value of your goods is more than like $1,000 or $2,000. The cost for an inspection is about $200. So like if the value of your goods is like $500, it's like, man, 200 adds another 30 or 40% or whatever it is. It's pretty expensive. But if you're placing an order for like $10,000 and it's like, all right, now $200 is pretty insignificant, and it helps you make sure that the goods are as expected. There's something else you can do, which I like to call a poor man's inspection, which I require in the contract. And again, I share this contract in the module that's being released next week or in 2 weeks, January 16th, 2 weeks. But I asked the sales rep to take pictures along the process for me. Now, of course, they want to like choose the nicest looking items, and they're not going to show you if one's like messed up, right? But this still can show like more serious defects. For example, if you ask for it to be painted red, they're painting it orange. It's like, wow, like you can see that in the photos. If there's little things like scratches or dents, they're going to choose items probably to take pictures of that don't have those, but it is still a way that's free that you can help see the good, you can help do QC. And it's just kind of fun to see the goods as they're being manufactured. Dan said, hey Greg, can we still use UPC? I'm reading Amazon's denying listings because they use UPC. Yes, you can use UPC. I think the listings that you're reading, Dan, are people who have registered UPC or EAN codes through a third party as opposed to GS1. So this is what's covered in this week's module that's being released on Thursday. I talk about packaging and branding, and part of that of packaging is getting your barcode. But let me go ahead and just give you the TLDR right now. So this company, GS1, is like the, for whatever reason, because I'm pretty sure that it's not even a government entity, they are like the central, or they're like the source of truth for EAN or UPC barcodes, all right? So if you register your barcodes through them, you get it like straight from the source, right? And you can look yourself up in their directory and I would have your business name registered and whatever else, all right? So this would be like the source of truth. Now, if you just Google like buy UPC codes, like you'll see there's a whole bunch of people selling them for way cheaper, right? Like I'll go to this one right here. And GS1 charges $250 to get your first 10 UPC codes, whereas this company is, you know, like I can buy one for $5, I can buy 10 for $15. So here 10 of them is only $15 instead of $250, right? However, Amazon has started to crack down on these third-party sellers of UPC codes. It seems like they work for some people, but don't work for other people. You know, Amazon also threatens that if you're not registered in their database, that they're going to suppress your listing. I don't know if that's actually happening much, but it does seem like people are at least running into troubles trying to create their listings. So this is the way that I look at it. If I'm like very serious about this business and like this is something that like I'm going to invest quite a bit of money in, you know, the goal of this is to quit my job in a year and take this full time. This is something that I know I'm dedicating myself to for years to come. Like this is the plan that I've chosen. I would just go ahead and invest in the GS1 codes right now. If you're like kind of dabbling in this, you're like, let me try a first product, see how it does, check it out. Then me personally, I might be more willing to go with the third party UPC codes, but just understand that it technically is against Amazon's terms of service. So it's like, you know, as far as creating your listing, worst case scenario, you lose your $5 or $10, which isn't that big of a deal, but you can't ever change the UPC code. At least you're not supposed to. Maybe someone at support could. So it's like, so you always you would always worry about that a little bit. I guess maybe you could create another variation on the same listing that has like a GS1 UPC code. But anyway, so that's kind of up to you to make your own choice, but now you have kind of all the facts. Dan said, to follow up on the QC question, is it okay to put in their contract where if there are a certain number of defects, we can require them to replace those products or get some discounts? Yes, and this is quite common to do. There are, most inspection companies have like typical standards, and I think these are actually created from like a ASTM, whatever government organization that is. ASTM says like, okay, out of every 500 units, there would be like 10, or there can be no more than 1 major defect, 0 critical defects, and 10 minor defects. So a minor defect would be like there's a small little scratch. So it's like, okay, out of every 500 units, they'll allow 10 tiny, small little scratches. A major defect might be like a dent. It's like, okay, out of 500, they'll allow 1 dent. And a critical would be like the unit doesn't work. So what typically happens is it's very common in contracts to have, if it fails the first inspection, so it has more than the small, normal, or critical, or I think those are the three categories, then it fails. And then what's common in contracts is that the factory must pay for a second reinspection, and or there's some kind of discount given on the goods. So, you could say, like, if it doesn't pass inspection, it's a contract. You can put whatever you want in there, but these would be things that are like fairly common that factories would be used to seeing. Elvin said, are products made from glass something you would stay away from completely? No, not necessarily. Just be mindful that you probably will get more returns. And we're just about at the top of the hour. All of the questions are done. If someone sneaks one more in the chat box, I'd be happy to answer it. The final things that I want to discuss are, so this Thursday, Module 4 is being released. Module 4 includes packaging, branding, as well as Amazon brand registry. These will answer a lot of the questions that you guys have been asking throughout this Facebook Live. And then next Thursday, so that's the 16th, there's a module on shipping. And this, again, will answer a lot of questions that you guys have around shipping, product inspections, all of the custom stuff, all those different types of things. So a lot of good content coming out soon. I'm happy to see there's good attendance here in the Facebook Live because it's been really fun chatting with you guys. And yeah, it looks like there's still not any new questions. So thank you very much for joining from this. I will see you again next week. And in the meantime, I'm looking forward to chatting with you guys in the Facebook group. So thanks. Bye-bye.